The wind cut across the desert like a knife, dragging curtains of red dust over the wasteland. In the blistering stillness, a figure emerged, tied to a fence post with rawhide rope. Her dress, once blue, clung in tattered folds, stiff with dried sweat and blood. She didn't cry. Clara May had stopped crying the day her father spat on the grave of her mother. Now her lips were cracked, eyes sunken, and though every inch of her body screamed for water, it was the silence, the nothingness stretching out. Before her, that pressed hardest on her chest, a buzzard circled above Dot from the canyon trail. A rider appeared, cresting the ridge slow and steady. Dust rose behind the hooves like smoke from an old war. The rider was tall in the saddle, coat dark, hat low. Elias Boone, a man built of bone, regret, and too many winters alone. His eyes narrowed under the brim as he drew closer, his hand casually resting near the worn handle of a Colt. The desert was full of traps, bandits, decoys, old sins waiting for payback. He reined in 20 yards from her, scanning the horizon before dismounting. The girl didn't speak, didn't flinch. Who did this? He asked, voice like sandpaper. She looked at him, slow and deliberate. Her throat moved as if words were trying to claw their way out, but died somewhere between rib and tongue. Elias took a cautious step closer. He saw the rope around her wrists, the way her shoulders sagged in defeat. The marks on her arms were fresh. Rage flickered in his gut, buried quickly beneath years of training and loss. "I'm gonna cut you loose," he said. "Don't move sudden, don't scream. Ain't no one out here but ghosts." Clara nodded, barely Dot. He pulled a hunting knife from his belt, moved with the quiet patience of a man who'd spent too much time around frightened animals and dying soldiers. The rope gave way. She stumbled forward. He caught her before she hit. The dust. Her body was light, too light, like something half-starved and held together by spite alone. Back on his horse, Elias settled her sideways across the saddle. She didn't protest, didn't thank him either. Just stared out at the distant mesas, eyes glassy but alert. "What's your name?" he asked, not expecting a reply. She whispered, hoarse, like someone coughing up the memory of a lullaby. "Clara." He rode on. The desert swallowed the fence post behind them. At the ranch, nestled between wind-beaten hills and the broken ribs of old mining shafts. Elias poured a tin cup of water and handed it to Clara. She drank like a coyote at dusk, fast, desperate, no time for grace. When she finished, she wiped her mouth with the back of her hand and looked around. The place was worn but solid. A 2-room shack, weathered barn, fenced pasture, and a half-built corral wood warped from the dry heat, nails rusted but firm. It was a man's world, untouched by laughter for years. "You stay in a while?" Elias asked, setting down the tin. She met his eyes. "Got nowhere else." He nodded once, slow. "Then you'll work. I don't do charity. I can pull my weight." "I don't doubt it." She didn't ask where she'd sleep. Just picked a corner of the barn and curled there with a blanket he tossed her, eyes open till the sky faded from orange to ink. That night, the wind rose like a dying animal. A storm barreled in from the west, slamming shutters, howling through the boards. Elias sat by the fire, staring into flame and memory. Thunder cracked. He didn't move. Outside, Clara stood in the doorway of the barn, hair whipping around her face. She watched the lightning split the sky and counted the seconds. Between flash and roar, Elias opened the door, his voice rough. "Get in here before it throws you across the field." She hesitated, then stepped inside. Days passed. The desert gave nothing but dust and work. Clara helped mend a broken gate, fed the chickens, learned how to handle the stubborn mule. She never smiled, but the tremble in her hands faded. Her arms grew stronger. Her silences shorter. Elias watched from a distance. He wasn't a man used to company, especially not the kind that walked with ghosts in her eyes. But Clara wasn't like other strays he'd seen. She didn't beg, Didn't flatter, didn't flinch at raised voices or sharp commands. One morning, he caught her standing in the field, looking at the fence post she'd once been tied to in her mind. She held a piece of rope, turning it over, studying the knots. "Why'd you do it?" she asked, without looking at him. "Do what?" "Help me." He rubbed his jaw. "You were dying." "That ain't a reason. Not out here." Elias paused, took off his hat. "No, it ain't." She waited. But he said nothing more. She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. Back in the barn, she found a rusted horseshoe and began to file the edge down with a stone. A blade, crude but sharp enough, not for vengeance, for readiness. That night, she dreamed of her father again, his shouting, his fists. But when she woke, she didn't cry. She just stared at the rafters and whispered to herself, "Never again." The ranch creaked in the wind. Outside, wolves howled far off, but not far enough. The desert had spared her once. It wouldn't be so kind a second time, and Clara May had no intention of ever being tied to a fence again, not while she could still fight.